just no, Jesse's part of our club through the Impact Club, and I'm about to introduce Chris right now. So I say we just get to it. All right. So before I introduce him, how many people in this room? I'm going to say everyone online uses social media, but how many people in this room actually actively engage on some sort of social media platform, whether it be Facebook, Instagram? So Chris, the room teeming with social media users. So I'm going to, let me read this. Hold on. I think I read my husband's bio for the first time the other day. How do I get out of this?
You do not need to read my bio.
I'll give the highlights. How about that?
Okay.
And sorry about the picture, babe, because I made my own. All right. So Chris Smith, not Chris Cates, although I tried, is the Senior Vice President of Enterprise Social Media, COE Executive from Bank of America. And basically what this means is that he runs social media for Bank of America. You guys can read this in the thing. I'm gonna tell you stuff about Chris that's not in this page, but we actually met, so he's a UVA guy, he's a Wahoo, Ed, so Virginia Tech is really their nemesis, right, Chris?
We don't even think of them.
Oh, okay, wow, they're beneath UVA's. And we actually met at AOL up in the 90s. Back during dial-up, before broadband even, and that was in the DC area. And Chris is from Fairfax, Virginia. And once we had our twins, I convinced him to move down to the south where I'm from, here in Charlotte. And now he has been a Charlottean for about 15 years. So he is a really smart guy. He's very funny. He's very annoying in that he sings a lot and makes up rhymes and is always making noise. So if you think I'm loud, but he is also a loving father and very good at math homework. So if anyone needs help, call him, because he's way more tolerant than I am. But one of the things that I wanted him to talk about today, and I can't find now, here it is just how do you get the most out of social media? And if you've never really been on social media before, this is either going to scare the crap out of you, or it's going to make you want to go and actually at least try it out. So, babe, I'm going to let you take over here. And,
all right.
If anyone has any questions, we'll do a Q&A at the end, because I actually don't know what's in this presentation. But all right, I'm gonna give you the floor.
The floor. All right. Can you see what I have up?
Yes, but we can also see like the next slides.
Oh, well, that's okay. You guys can see what's coming up.
Yeah,
hold on one second here.
Just make it big. Just make it bigger. It looks like you've got some graphs up there, so we're going to want to see as big as possible.
Let's see. Well, give me 1 second here. How do I get rid? This would be my first. Is that
there
better?
You go. That works.
Okay.
All right. Perfect.
Okay. Awesome. So it sounds like we got a good mix of folks. You know, I did build this presentation specifically for two purposes. One, the bank does quite a bit with nonprofits, and so I had a chance to speak to you know, a number of them. And then we actually have some of the neighborhood builder grantees are going to be in town over the next couple of weeks, and we're going to kind of get into this. This can be for your, you know, a for-profit business, nonprofit. You could even grab some learnings out of this for just your personal use. But typically when I'm talking about social media, I always start with kind of the macro story and why should any of us care about what's happening in social? And it's because the audiences that we care about are increasingly spending, you know, an inordinate amount of time in these networks. So globally, there's about 4 billion active users. You'll hear me say active. It means somebody, you know, goes in weekly, monthly, et cetera, and is participating. Within the US, about 80% of the population is active in social. 30% of all time that is spent online is actually spent in these networks. So think about reading the news, doing emails, et cetera. The number one activity is actually folks, spending time on TikTok or spending time on Facebook. In terms of, if you're interested in driving sales for your business or you're interested in driving donations, there really are only 3 platforms that you should really seriously consider. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok are number 1, number 2, and number 3. And then here is, and I just heard a gentleman talk about, election, faith in elections. Here's a scary stat: 68% of Americans get their news exclusively from Facebook. So it makes me worry for the future of mankind. But and then on the right, it would just have average time per day, 45 minutes spent on TikTok. YouTube's still a massive network, and then you can see time spent in the rest of the network. So number one, you want to be there because this is where the audience is that you're trying to reach or spending time. Beyond that, like what specifically can social do for your business? There's a couple of things. Number one,
Hey, Chris,
build trust.
Sorry. Chris, can you just move the slide over just a little? We can't see the whole thing. Like move it to, oh yeah, like a little bit more to the right now. I don't know if you
Hold on
can
one
see
second here. Give me 1 second here. I don't use Zoom, so I'm just trying to understand.
And this looks different than I've ever seen, so I don't know if they've updated.
All right, bear with me here. Display settings. Let me just end the slideshow.
Oh, you don't have to do that. Just yeah, just scroll it over a little to the right and a little bit down.
Wait a minute, are you able to see what I'm sharing right here?
Yeah, we can see it. It's just not centered. Let me see if I can move.
Here, I just need to put it in. The Zoom little frames are covering my controls.
Yeah, it's annoying.
So just
all right, that's better. Okay, that's better. I moved you around as well, so sorry.
I was gonna say I didn't do anything, so this is perfect. Okay. All right, so I will just click through the slides. I was going to enlarge, but we will leave it as it is. So, specifically social does 4 or 5 things for businesses or nonprofits. Number one, it builds trust. People, basically 70+% of folks, before they do business with a business, they'll actually research and look at the business online, specifically in social media. 2 is it's a great way to promote events that you may have. It could be virtual events like, I'm coming to you virtually, all the way to town halls, et cetera. This is the big promise, particularly of like a Facebook and a YouTube, is it's about reach. And so you may have a core group of customers and clients. Social media, and I'll show you how to do this here in a little bit, it actually lets you go find lookalikes. Right, so if your ideal customer looks like X, there are tools within social, geographically, economic makeup, et cetera, that you can actually run campaigns against to drive more business. And then again, it's about leads and sales, donations. Again, Facebook, Insta, TikTok are the big 3. I did put in terms of, they're called buyers, but folks that will purchase through these different networks. Facebook is in red here on the graph on the right. Instagram is in black. And then that darker gray line, which is going to be overtaking the lighter gray line, is TikTok. And so a couple of big things. Facebook, Instagram are still the 800-pound monsters in commerce in the United States. And then TikTok is actually going to surpass Pinterest. The reason that is interesting is because TikTok's been around for about 3 years. It's the fastest growing social network in history. And so, anyway, so these are the networks you would want to play in. If you go, let me go to the next slide. You will hear this a lot. I'm sure, Kelly, you hear this, when you're managing Promising Pages sites. Everybody gets excited because they're like, social media is free. It's like, okay, here's how free here's how free this is, right? If you're going to put a post out there, time is money. If you're doing a graphic, like you're going to put together a fun image or whatever, on average, we spend about 30 minutes on that photo or video, probably closer to 45 minutes. And then copywriting, I am the soup czar on copywriting. You got to spend at least 15 minutes, even if it's 140 characters that you're writing. So you basically have about 45 minutes tied up in a post. So social media is anything but free. And the reason I'm making that case, and I'm gonna kind of go to this next slide, is you've got to be. You guys have probably heard over time there are SMART goals, right? So goals that you're going to set aside, set out. They have to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and it has to be time-based. And the reason I say that is often I will, I'll be in a meeting and somebody will ask me, what is your social media strategy? And my answer is I don't have one, right? The bank has a strategy. Social can help achieve some of it, but not all of it. So now let's figure out what we can bite off and assist. Is it to drive sales? Is it to, let people, drive awareness of a new product that we may be rolling out? Is it to make one of our Merrill Lynch advisors' phone ring, right? That is what social can do. So do not confuse, your social quote strategy with your company strategy or your nonprofit strategy. They are not the same thing. And when we talk about, making something, specific, it could be something like, I want to increase my leads through the social platforms by 10% by the end of Q4, right? It's something that is very specific. It's connected to your business goals. You can measure it, and we'll talk about some of the things that I'll show you some of the tricks that I use for measurement. They have to actually be attainable. It's relevant to your business, and you've given yourself a quarter to get it done. If I go on to the next, slide, so social is part of a broader, I'm going to call it an ecosystem, in terms of how your customers, your clients, your folks that are making donations, they're probably choosing multiple channels in terms of how they connect with you. Maybe they subscribe to your email newsletter. Maybe there's direct mail that's showing up in their mailbox. Maybe they're Googling and looking for stuff. Social is part of that ecosystem. So when you start with like your organizational strategy and goals, you need to look at what role is social playing. And here are the things that social is good at. It's good at driving awareness of who you are, what you stand for. It's good at driving engagement with your brand and with maybe your products or services. You can drive volunteers if that's something that you're attempting to do. You can drive leads. You can drive donations. You've got to have a thick skin in social because you're going to get feedback, and you may not appreciate some of that feedback, but you're definitely getting people's raw, emotions at times. You can influence, right? It could be the mayor of Charlotte, right? The mayor of Charlotte is connected to, X number of business leaders, et cetera. And so as you're publishing and you're engaging with their content, in turn, she may turn around and engage back with your content. So there's influence around topics. And then if you've got, like we do at the bank, a really good group of brand, our employees are very passionate about the brand. You actually can have your employees go forth and be advocates. That one, if you've got a question later on, that can be good or bad depending on how mature the individual is. And then, as always, you're going to measure everything you can measure and understand the role of social may not be to sell that widget. The role of social may be, if you want to learn more, follower, sign up for our email newsletter, right? Social may play a part like that, where you're actually setting up one of these other, I'm going to call them channels in the ecosystem. So that's why it's so important to, to make sure you've got SMART goals. Okay. So let's say now you've got your company strategy, your nonprofit strategy, you know what your goals are. You've laid out some SMART approaches for what you want to get done. Now you need to not just select a network. And so I won't go through all of the social media networks. These happen to be the ones that we are on at B of A and Merrill Lynch. But you've also got to develop your personality in social. And so, you've got to decide what is the brand? What is the voice? Is it the founder if you're a nonprofit? I'll use one example on Twitter. It was the very first handle that we launched on Twitter. It's called B of A News. And I actually modeled that after a gentleman named Jim Mahoney, who ran our corporate communications. He was like a dear man, unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but literally it's his voice, right? So when we're writing for B of A News, which is the Twitter handle, can I hear Jim in this post? If the answer is no, we stop. And so having that in mind is really important. The other thing, and things you got to be careful of, there should be an employee identified who's going to own each platform. Do not have more than one sort of tripping over each other, because no one will be doing exactly what it is that you're looking to have done. So it's got to be very clear who is managing that particular presence, and ensure those ground rules are all set. The other thing I would say is, when these channels talk back to you, and they will, do not take anything personally. They are not speaking to you as a human. Maybe they're frustrated, maybe they're excited, whatever it may be, but you are not your brand's handle. So that's a key thing to remember. The other thing is, these networks will tell you when your network is online. What is the perfect day and time? So I could go out on Facebook right now and it'll tell me, Chris, your number one day for performance for the audience that you're reaching is Wednesday at 8 a.m. Eastern time and Saturday at 9 a.m., right? And so you're going to want to align your posts to coincide with those, with those moments. The other thing, and Kelly and I talked about this, a year plus ago when Promising Pages was going out in social, and we have the same issue, which is if you're trying to if one of your goals is, I want to reach 2,500 people in the city of Charlotte, and I want them to do X. And then you look at it and you're like, I got 5,000 people connected. That's awesome. These platforms will tell you where those people are, right? So don't get too excited about that number when you then find out they're all in Pakistan, right? That's not helping if you're a local business and you're trying to achieve something within Charlotte. So the networks will show you where the audience is, where they're from. Each social network, you do not do, if you've not already established a social presence, pick one. Do not do all of these. And I just put in here just a little, cheat sheet for what is it that the audience is looking to do? How do they behave in each of these networks? How you behave on Instagram is very different than how you're behaving on LinkedIn. Instagram is about visual. It's looking for inspiration. It's incredibly positive for the most part. There are challenges there. And LinkedIn, it's obviously professional, right? So you're not, as a user, you're not getting to use those platforms similarly. So you just have to know that as you enter the network. Just go into one, maybe two, master those, understand what's making it work, and then really only go to another platform if there's an audience that you feel like you're not quite reaching, or you're not quite able to get them to take the action you want them to take. I did put throughout this number of slides just kind of freebies, but once you've got, what is your organization's goals? What are your SMART goals for social? How does social fit into your other channels? What networks are you on? What's the personality? Now you have to start creating a calendar. And so this is a free thing off of HubSpot.com, but it gives you a visual of what are you talking about on your chosen handle. And so we do this at the bank. Right now, obviously it's October. You've got Halloween coming up. Like we develop calendars. We call them customer mindset maps. But like people are thinking about inflation's out of control, right? The holidays are coming up. How am I going to be able to stretch my dollar further? What kind of volatility are we going to see at the beginning of next year? So we lay all of that out, and not only does it help you visually look at what you're doing, it also lets you click in to go, okay, that thing I thought was going to be great for Halloween, given what is happening in the world at any given moment, is it still appropriate, right? And so you can go in and you can look at what you've written and go, you know what? It feels a little too frivolous for what's happening, so why don't we change it, or let's just hold it and do something later. So it's important to visually see what you got going on and coming up. Okay, so I'm going to turn now for the next 2 slides, and I'm going to talk about how you measure success. And these are just some tricks that I use in eyeballing performance. So these are examples from BVA. These are real examples. They're a little bit dated, but that's okay because I do this with everything we've got. But we launched this thing called How To Tuesdays, right? It's catchy, it's interesting. So we went out the door with a couple of versions of this how-to post. This is on Facebook on the left. And this one was a disaster. So we have a rolling benchmark called engagement rates. And this one was 50% of our benchmark target, right? So, and then if you look to the right, this is a Facebook, it's called a carousel unit, which is you can scroll to the right on your phone. And this thing had 3 times the benchmark in terms of engagement rate. So the beauty of this is you have a loser and you have a winner. Now you have to figure out why, right? Is it the creative choice? Is it the call to action? Is it the copy, right? And that's where you begin to kind of try new things and you test new things and you develop, you get comfortable with who is your brand, who is your audience, and what makes them tick. Here's why this is important. These algorithms that the networks employ, they're watching, right? So they're watching this how-to post. If this is a loser, if I lose enough, they will show my post to fewer and fewer people. And that means I have to pay to reach the audience I want to reach. And so the algorithms are looking for losers and they're looking for winners. If you drive more winners, it's going to show it to more people. And so you just got to know that animal is running in the background.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Can I ask you a quick question? So is that another reason why it's incredibly important to post at the times when your audience is on? Because if you post at a time they're not and you don't get a lot of engagement or attention, it'll automatically suppress your post before your audience is even ready to look at it.
100%. Yeah.
See, I'm a genius now. You've taught me so much.
I did. And I have so much more to teach you, Cal.
Oh, God.
Yeah. No, that's right. We actually we've got executives that we support at the bank, and, we'll get like a text Sunday afternoon, like, hey, I just read this article and I think everybody's gonna want to read it. Can you post it right now? And it's like, everyone's watching football right now, right? So if you post this thing on LinkedIn, everyone's watching the NFL and no one will see it. And exactly where you just went is the outcome, which is LinkedIn is watching the posts. And if they're choosing to show your post to X number of followers. And what they would rather do is have your competitor instead, right? If your competitor has a better engagement rate, that's better for LinkedIn because it drives more eyeballs and activity for them. So there's a little bit of this, there's a little bit of a feedback loop that's going on that you got to be aware of. Okay. You can tell by these slides, I am not a big formatting guy. I'm more of a data person. So, but these are the two visualizations that I use with my team, and I think they don't hate it, but to me, it really clarifies. So I'm big with graphs, I'm big with data visualization, but there are two things that matter in marketing in my particular role. Impressions, how many eyeballs saw this item, and then engagement rate, how many engagements, as it's a ratio, how many people actually engaged with it. And here's the beauty of this graph on the left. I want more of this post, and I want less of these posts because better engagement rate and more impressions is a winner, right? So now the idea is, let me click into this. There's nothing behind this, but why did that work, right? And if you see enough, like, well, when I talk about product X, I'm getting amazing engagement and the algorithm's giving me more impressions. Well, you probably should talk more about that thing, right? And then of the things that aren't performing, whether it's impressions or engagement rate. And by the way, these may not be your metrics. They're just the ones that we're looking at. The other beautiful thing, if you go to the right, reach is how many people potentially saw something. And I like to stack rank it best to worst, and then benchmarking it against a rolling 3-month average. And so if post 1 and 13 beat my rolling 3-month average, that means I'm telling the algorithm, I'm getting better, man. Throw me more impressions. And then post 5, it's important to understand, why did it not work, right? It didn't reach the average. So these are literally the two things that I am looking at when we're going in and we're evaluating content performance in social. Okay. There's another dimension to this. You've got really, there are 3 things in social that are kind of working, right? Everything I've been talking about is, I call it organic, but this is stuff that we publish. We don't put any paid media behind it, right? These aren't ads, right? We're just posting out on our handle, just like you might post on your personal Facebook page. But so we're just pushing it out there for folks that are interested in what we talk about. That's called organic. On the other side is you can pay Facebook to force your ad or your post to show up to a group of people that you can define. And it's really where those two things come together. Like if something's really working on organic, that's when we decide to put a little bit of money behind it to see if we can drive, more quality. The other thing you can do, and this lower left, this is the third item, we call it earned. But if you get press coverage or you get other influencers that are engaging with your content, we call that earned media. So you've got organic media, paid media, and earned media, and the 3 work together. I will not read this eye chart, but what I did want to tell you all is when you go into Facebook, it's now called Meta. You go in, they have a suite of management tools where the thing I wanted to show you is I can create an audience that I want to reach. And the audience may be, women between the ages of X and Y who have this level of income, who like sports, and who, also like gardening, right? So you can literally pick the audience you want to reach, and you could do geography like North Carolina. And by the way, what I'm willing Facebook to pay for is clicks by that audience, or it could be purchases. And basically this turns into an auction, right? I'm willing to pay $1.50 per click, and Chase Bank is willing to pay $2 for the same audience. Chase is going to win, right? So think of it almost like an auction where you're bidding, but you have the ability to pick and define your audience. Obviously, the example I just gave you in banking is illegal, so you can't target based on gender. So if anybody is a lawyer and listening, we do not do that. If I go to the next page, you also can, add purchase buttons. Again, this is a little bit of an eye chart, but it's basically 3 clicks to add a donate button to a post, or 3 clicks to add a buy now. So this is in the same place that I'll back up for a second, where you'll also define your audience, right? So you can add a purchase or donation button. Okay, 2 slides left. So this is now, so let's say you've done everything that I've said, and you've got a couple of months under your belt. You've done a couple dozen posts. You're already doing your newsletters. You've got everything working. The next thing that you should do is create what we call journey maps for your audience, right? You should always be testing, is what's working for me? Is there a better widget or a better way of approaching it? And we call that A/B testing, and then put the 2 things head to head. A is your control, which is the thing that's working for you. And B is, hey, I think this could be better. So for instance, maybe a post with blue in it seems to always win. Try green, right? And continue to challenge blue as being the best, background color or something in your image. When you do these journey maps, you basically begin to meld together, where's your traffic coming from? How is it connected to your website or your application or your app that may be out there? And then if your goal for your website is to drive, let's say, donations or purchases, what do you see when your audience clicks that button, right? And so now I'm going to take it from left to right. So let's say, it's promisingpages.org. You see that Google is directly driving 25% of your traffic, right? People are going to Google and they're typing a certain number of keywords and it's going to you. Great. Let's say Facebook's driving 7%, 70%, and then you see people are typing promisingpages.org with a hyphen in there somewhere directly. Okay, got it. So most of my traffic is coming from Facebook, right? Is that good or is that bad, right? Only you will know, because you'll be defining, what your sources of traffic are. Now, going to the next step, when people click the button to buy something, 80% of people clicking are running away and they're abandoning that button, right? And 20% are taking the action I wanted. Okay, well, that's interesting. What's the 80-20 rule on the 80%? Well, 80% who abandon are using Firefox, right? It's a browser. 80% of those donating, of the 20%, they're using Safari. So here's which is an Apple browser. This tells me something is wrong with your website on Firefox, right? So now you're going to want to go out and look at your website on that browser. And what you'll probably find is the donate button is, or that next step is invisible, or it wasn't programmed correctly for that. The other thing this tells you is maybe you should be spending more time, on Apple and maybe on the iPhone platform or your iPhone app, because that's where your, sweet spot is. I've really talked about traffic coming into your site. Now let's talk about traffic that left your site. And you guys will see this all day long with Amazon, where maybe I'm out on CNN.com. I see an ad for, an Amazon offer. Maybe I click on that and I'm like, I'm not ready to buy. I close it. I go back to CNN, right? Then maybe I go visit another site, or I visit Facebook, and that thing that I was looking at on Amazon is like front and center, right? It's a little bit creepy, but it's also kind of useful. So that's the other thing you can do with your website. If you see 80% of people abandoning, you actually can it's called retargeting, but you can retarget them on other websites. That is a paid tactic, but if somebody abandoned your cart, that's a way you can, very easily go back and reach them. Okay, so now I'm going to take us to the last slide. And I just want to talk about tools. I know, Kelly, you use some of these. We actually either use or have used all of these at the bank. But these are a good list of either freeware or it's very small amount of money to basically license. One is Canva, which is really great at putting together social graphics that will go into your image, into your video, into your GIF, whatever it may be. Definitely worth checking out. Hootsuite, these all have ridiculous names, but Hootsuite is a really simple, easy, inexpensive way to do your content planning that I showed you earlier. You could schedule posts, like I want that post to go at 6 a.m. on Wednesday, and you just hit set, right? And then you can go to bed. You don't have to wake up at 6. It will automatically publish it for you. They also have some performance stuff in there that you can look at. The social networks themselves have ridiculously detailed insights, which is their term for analytics. So I can go look at the demographics of my followers. I can look at performance by post, et cetera. So start there before you pay for a tool. Most ridiculous name on any of these slides is called BuzzSumo. It's a paid tool that recommends content. It basically scans your social network presence and basically looks at all your competitors, looks at what's really popping for them. And then it says, by the way, hey, B of A, everyone's clicking on these inflation posts over, you should consider talking about A, B, and C, right? And then I can sit down with my team and say, we can't talk about A and B, but C is wide open. Let's get some posts going. And all of this is done in real time. And then lastly, and most of us do this, is just using Google Analytics. It's a tag that you'll add to your pages or a pixel that you'll drop on your mobile app. But essentially, it does a lot of the tracking. I'm going to go back up for a second. It can show you where your traffic's coming from and where is it going. So that's just helpful to kind of knit this here. I'm going to back up. To knit this whole story together so you understand how all of your individual channels are working together to help you achieve your goals. So that is as easy and as hard as it all is. But Kelly, I will kick it back to you.
Thanks, Chris. Then, let's see, let me go side by side. There we are. So can you just give, like, that was very high level for folks who are actually actively on or have, nonprofits or businesses that are using social media. Can you take it down to the basics? So like, if you're just a, standard person just posting on Facebook or Instagram, what types of things, like I always harp on Kevin about pictures. Like pictures it's important to edit your pictures, make sure, they're closer in, they're well lit. So like, what are some of the important things for just the average Joe to remember if you want people to actually see your posts?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I won't read all the text on this slide. And for folks that are just dialed in, it's just each of the networks. But your point, so number one is, at a minimum, you should be having photography in your posts. And to your point, you should worry about you want to really optimize it, whether it's lighting, you want to show human faces. Remember, the person's scrolling through their, you've literally got half of a second to stop them. The other best practices are, don't assume the sound is on their phone, right? 90% of people that engage in social media, maybe higher than this, they're on their phone. They're not on their computer. Sound is off. 80% of people have sound off, right? So having closed captioning, which the networks will help you translate what's being said, having that kind of run across if what you've got going is a video. The other 80% is, it's hard because there's so many 80%. Most engagement is going to video, right? So a video is greater than an image, and those two together, you should never do just text. Let me just put it that way. There should always be a graphic, a picture with a friendly face, or a video of a friendly face doing a how-to, 3 reasons this is the best product you've ever seen in your life, right? So people are looking for tips, tricks. They want to be entertained. They don't want your full value proposition, right? And 8-point font written in. No one cares, right? So you're competing with somebody dancing on TikTok, right? So you just gotta go, be super basic on what you're putting out there. Keep it short and sweet. And even though, like, I'll take Instagram, like you could write a novel on Instagram, we still try to hold ourselves to the 140 characters allowed on Twitter, because, and it changes over time. Like some people will now write really long Instagram posts, right? And they'll stuff it with keywords and they'll do all of that stuff. But really at the end of the day, what's thumb stopping, what's going to make them pay attention, understand sound is off. They want to stay in the network, right? So if you want them to take an action, make sure they can do the action in the network. If I click and a browser loads and it's not optimized and I'm having to like zoom in, I will never click on one of your posts ever again.
Clickbait. Thank you. Does anyone online or in the room have a question, a burning question about social media? Marja? Or I can hear.
How do you get the analytics? Like who's getting on your social media? I know you can do that on Facebook and Instagram, but what about the website? Using
Google Analytics.
Google, yeah.
Yeah.
I caught the second half of that, but I think, what was the first half?
She was asking about analytics through your website, but it's Google Analytics. And I think Google will actually, I think if you're going to put Google Analytics, attach it, I think it gives you like a step-by-step on how to do that. I'm pretty sure. I know Taylor did that for us, and I think if he's listening, but yeah.
Yeah, and there are different for your website. It might be analytics is how you're pulling, like how many impressions, clicks, how much time did they spend on that page, did they abandon, and all of that. There are other things. This might be pricier, and this is outside of my area, but there are they call them experience platforms. But Adobe has an engine that you can connect, obviously, to your website and Google Analytics, where it is trying to predict what the person who is literally showing up in a nanosecond is most likely to respond to. So it's using artificial intelligence behind the scenes to go, Chris is going to show up, and we know that he likes snowboarding more than he likes skiing. And so when he shows up on REI's website, show him a snowboarding photo, not a skiing photo, because we know he'll be more likely to convert. So analytics is how you'll understand the traffic that's on the page, but there are things that are feeding into that page for a business that that you can plug into it, and Adobe is one of those examples.
Fancy, too fancy for us. Yes.
I just want to say thank you for letting everybody know why I'm being led to where I'm going when I'm on the website. I mean, your idea about Amazon is really crazy. I was looking at dry bag, and all of a sudden, I'm in dry bag city for a week and a half till I finally bought
It is crazy how integrated social and tracking it. So like if you guys all have, if you have an iPhone, you can ask apps not to track you. I would recommend that unless you really like the ads, but I think the more worrisome thing is when you get an ad that you're like, why am I getting this ad? And on my work computer, we've had some of those where I was like, yikes. But yeah, that's exactly why. So.
And you may, if there are any investors in the audience, like if you've seen Facebook take a hit over the last, say, quarter or two, it's because Apple introduced what Kelly just talked about, right? And so Facebook was making a huge chunk of its money, not just within its app, but it was tracking you across apps and then selling that activity, not selling, but enabling advertisers to push their ads into those apps based on that learning. And so Apple has come in and said, nope, it's default no, unless the user says you're allowed to track them across apps.
Is it everything that you click on your computer or on your phone, something is tracking it. It knows where you go, unless you're in like, you can pull up a browser on your phone and go into private mode. It doesn't,
Yep.
I think it tracks that way, but you know, most of us are just looking at like toothpaste and stuff. It's not a big deal, but you know, it's concerning that so much information and TikTok, like I said, is owned by the Chinese and they have your information. So I don't know if you guys, how many people were here when we had that young woman come and talk to us about China who escaped from the correction camp. Yeah. So just putting those pieces together. Anyone online have any questions for Chris? And Chris, will you be able to share this presentation with us or parts of it?
Yeah. I can flip it over to you.
Flip it.
Flip it.
It's one of his words. Flip it to me. I can't see everybody, so if you are online and you have a question, you just need to come off. And if not, we're gonna say the 5-way test and pull the ticket and ding, ding, ding. Everybody good? My dear, thank you.
Goodbye. Thanks, everyone. Wait a minute. Is Taylor giving me a golf clap? Yep. All right.
Try it later. All right. Thanks, babe.
Bye-bye.
All right. So could we have, let's see, Martin, pull the winning ticket? Or have your son?